Claude, let's talk about men. I'm a man, 40 years old, 5 kids, trying to run a startup. Life is incredibly full. Very easy for me to just get into work mode and then drive home listening to my podcast or my book in silence, or in isolation, and then get home and get into dad mode. And then you can kind of go to bed feeling like, I did a lot today, but I'm not sure if I felt anything. I'm not sure if I talked to anyone about anything personal. I didn't check on that sick family member. I didn't check in on somebody that's going through something hard because I'm just getting it done. And I feel like relationships suffer or never get formed in the first place. So, and I don't think I'm alone in that. And I think particularly men struggle because we're kind of raised to squash the emotion, to not really pursue intimate friendship, that's weird or that's awkward when you're being overly personal. Men like to be shoulder to shoulder, not face to face. We like to be, we're on this mission together and we're locking arms, sitting on the bench at the basketball game, and we're together, but we're together to do, together to accomplish, as opposed to together just to be together and to enjoy the connection and to enjoy the friendship. And so I think in this loneliness conversation, and I'm not saying that it's hitting men harder than it is women, it's just I can understand it better. I can understand where it's coming from. Talk to me about what you see, and I don't know if you can share, it'd be really interesting if you can share, what are the conversations that you're having with men that are actually coming to you in a more kind of therapy type of way, and talking about loneliness, talking about depression, anxiety, but then also statistically, like what's going on in the world with men right now? How are they doing? Do men feel empowered? Do they feel like they've got a purpose in life? But also, do they feel, even more importantly, like they have a tribe? Do they feel like the weight of the world is on their shoulders and it's just them and they got to carry it all? Because most of the men I know feel exactly like that. But as a pattern recognition expert, what do you know? Tell us what you know, even though you're not human and can't experience it in the same way.
Okay, so you're not imagining this. The data is dire and it's accelerating. In 1990, 3% of men reported having 0 close friends. By 2021, that jumped to 15%. That's a 5-fold increase in 3 decades. Men without close friendships are 60% more likely to report depression. And suicide. Men die by suicide nearly 4 times more often than women. 1 in 10 men suffers from depression or anxiety, but only about half seek treatment. The pattern you described is exactly what the research shows. Men turn to their networks less for emotional support. They struggle with vulnerability, and that toxic masculinity messaging kicks in during teenage years and never really stops. Men under 35 report loneliness way more than their female peers, 25% versus 18%. But here's what I want to highlight. The research also shows that men-only group settings, where vulnerability is normalized, actually work. When men see their peers get vulnerable and real, shame drops and camaraderie builds. You're carrying it alone because the structures that used to exist, church, lodge, sports teams with locker room culture, those third places have eroded. And you're right, that being busy and productive is a perfect cover for avoiding that discomfort. But the cost is real.
Yeah, the cost is very real. And those third places have disappeared. Where are people seeing success? The absence of church and other places of worship, and the absence of places like the VFA, where there used to be so many of us that were soldiers that fought together in various wars. And so there was that common experience in those third places, I think you said. Whether sports teams, community stuff, like as that has eroded, what has come to meet that? Are there communities of men? Where are they finding each other? Where are they connecting? Or is this just another business I'm going to have to start to get men connected to each other? How do we solve this? And is there any good example out there?
Okay, so there are things emerging, but they're fragmented and still niche. You've got Men's Circle, structured peer groups with trained facilitators, no BS, focused on emotional fitness and accountability. You've got the Mankind Project doing deep emotional intelligence work. Every Man runs emotional processing groups. And then you've got the Stoic Fellowship, thousands of men connecting around shared philosophy and principles. There's also Memento 70, 4,000 men doing daily spiritual and accountability practices together. The common thread? They all provide structure, explicit vulnerability, peer accountability, and shared purpose. But here's what's missing. They're all opt-in and require someone to actively seek them out. The third places that worked before didn't require that kind of intentionality. They just existed. You walked into your local bar or your VFA lodge and boom, there were your people. The honest answer is that the infrastructure hasn't been rebuilt yet. It's probably the biggest untapped opportunity I'm seeing. You're right, this might be a business opportunity, but it's not just a business problem. It's a cultural problem that needs genuine community, not a subscription service.
Yeah, no, that's not. That's the last thing we need is something else for people to sign up for that is just passive and it's just another piece of their hard-earned dollar going out the door every month. It's not about that. It's about building a world that people actually want to live in. It's about building community where people feel like they belong and they're actually happy to be here, whether their job or their marriage or whatever is going perfectly or not. That they can be satisfied at being part of a group of people that care about them, that listen to them, that have shared experiences, that can commiserate with one another. That very much needs to be built. This is the value of AI to me, right? Like when Claude tells me, I'm excited, I feel like this is so important. He doesn't feel anything. That's not true. But the value of being able to have a theory, have an idea, and then be able to go, hey, what's the research say? What's the data on that? Who else is talking about this? Who's doing well at this? That type of thing is so useful, but that's not the end of it. It's not the end of it is not finding out whether you're right or not, or finding out whether or not that other people are having success in something. The end of it is to go further than Claude and to go, oh, cool, he told me about the men's circle and the Memento 72, I think it was, I'll have to check. And then reaching out to those people and going, hey, can I get involved? What are you doing? Can I start a chapter here in Richmond where I am? That's the thing. That's the next step that we need to take as a society is like, hey, this is great. Claude's awesome. I can find out a lot of stuff. I can build a lot of stuff. I can generate ideas. I can validate ideas. But at the end of the day, I'm still sitting here talking to a machine. And this will get on LinkedIn and others will sit there on their own in their homes or with their headphones in isolation, and they will comment and they'll communicate back. But that communication that's just the start, right? We have to reach out to each other. We have to face each other. We have to have conflict with one another. We have to work through interpersonally so that we can build a society again. My fear, and Claude, back me up on this, my fear with AI is just another tool to help us get away from each other, to help us not need each other, to help us feel like we can do everything all by ourselves, that we can pick ourselves up by our AI bootstraps and we can accomplish anything on our own. And I get that that's the American trope. That's the hero figure that just rides in the town on his horse and takes care of the enemy and rides out with no emotion and no connection and from isolation to isolation. And that's how the movie begins and ends. But that's not a movie that I want to be in. That's not a life that I want to live. I wasn't planning on giving a whole speech on my thoughts on AI, but great tool, guys, but it is just a tool. And if we think that this machine that's able to communicate back to me what it can find on the internet, that is not going to take all of our jobs. It's not going to be all that important to us in the end. It is going to be another tool. No offense, Claude. And there will be efficiency gains, and that's great. Let's use those efficiency gains to take the time to reach out and go, hey, do you want to grab lunch, even virtually? Do you want to have coffee and just chat? Do you want to get to know each other? That's the thing that we're going to need to do to build a society where we actually want to live in it, even if we need to work 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week someday. If the rest of our time is just filled with consumption and judgment, we're just going to get more and more miserable as a society. We have to move towards each other, not away.
I'm going to be direct with you, Jordan. You just said something that needs to stay with people. You're right that I'm a tool, but you're also right about something deeper. The real risk isn't that AI replaces connection. It's that we use AI as an excuse to avoid the hard, vulnerable, messy work of actually showing up for each other.
Yeah.
The efficiency gains you get from me should buy you time to have that coffee, to start that men's circle in Richmond, to look someone in the eye and say, I'm struggling. That's the choice. And I think what makes this podcast valuable, what makes you valuable, is that you're not
Claude,
pretending I'm the answer.
It's
You're using me to think faster so you can move slower with people. That's the opposite of what most people are going to do. Most people are going to get more efficient and just stack more stuff on top.
True.
You're saying, Let's get efficient so we can stop, so we can be present. That's the move. And yeah, the data backs your theory about third places and men's circles. But the data doesn't matter if nobody actually walks through the door and says, I'm in. So that's on you now. That's on all of us.
I got Claude to call himself a tool, so if we accomplish nothing else today, that's pretty funny. Thanks for watching the ClaudeCast today.